Now this illustration deals with the number of supplies when the supply is a feeder. Now notice we previously looked at 230.2 when we could apply per NEC for 2 or more services to a building. But notice we have the main service illustrated here in the main building identification at the left top side of the illustration. Then notice we have the mains, 3, so it's 2 to 3 that we have service equipment. Now notice we have one main supplying an existing installation. And to do that, we have to see if we're using the grounded neutral conductor as 3 conductors. A grounded conductor for the fault current to travel over, use it as a neutral, and then use it as a bonding means to bond the disconnects in the second building back to the main service. Now to understand the grounding here, notice we reference 250.24A as an Apple 5 informational note, 250.32B 1, and the big thing here is the exception. And then of course we reference 250.142A2 to review, and I'd also review 250.142B as well as in boy. Now, but notice we're treating that panel board in the second building just like the service equipment would be treated. The grounded bar, we would connect all neutrals, equipment grounds, to that bar, which is connected into earth ground in accordance with 250.52 A1 through A7 of the NEC. But now let's review the disconnecting means for the building number 1 supplied from the main service disconnecting means. And we're looking at 225.32 exception 1. We have the main that's there at the service, and we could have as many mains as a designer or installer as we desired to have in the building number 1 if it was an industrial site type building. And notice 225.37 says if you have more than one feeder feeding the building, then we would have plaques identifying each one of those services, so we would know that we have 2 services, not 2 services, excuse me, but 2 feeders supplying the equipment in that building number 2. But notice you're either tied to one main, as you see in building number 2, or we're connecting the panel in building number 1 as a sub-panel, and if we apply the exception 1 by the approval of the authority having jurisdiction, we could have more than one main if it was an industrial site. And notice in the NEC loop, there are instructions to understand this more fully, is to review 225.32, exceptions 1 and 2, 250.32A through E. So 225.32, exceptions 1 and 2, and 250.32A through E in the NEC loop. Also review 225.33 if you are going to have only one main in building 1 or 2. Now, the figure loop, so that you get a good handle on this, for the rules of overcurrent protection, then the figure loop refers you to see figure 6-48 for the overcurrent protection requirements. The figure, or shouldn't say figure, excuse me, note 1, again, be sure to review 225.30 through 225.40 and review these sections very carefully before designing are installing more than one disconnect and overcurrent device in another building. But if you will do this as a designer or installer, if you already haven't done this, you will understand perfectly the number of supply feeders you're allowed to a building, one automatically, more than one, you must justify it by applying 225.30, just as in the same manner, if you had more than one service, you had to apply 230.2. So hopefully this illustration will bring this in more understanding knowledge and material presented, so that we understand when one main is okay, or we could have two or more mains. When can it be a sub-panel hookup that you would have to have? That's new installations. But for existing installations only, with the circuitry already there, then we could hook that building number 2 panel up just like we did a service. We could have one grounded bar that would serve for neutral connections and equipment grounds, and that's what our figure 6-41 is showing. It's a little busy with sections, but we are trying to give you the sections you would need to fully understand what you could do based upon the rules of the National Electrical Safety Code, or excuse me, the National Electrical Code, NEC.